What is up, everybody, and a very warm welcome to you lonely regular offenders who have showed up on time for this latest installment of Reality Decoded, in which this evening we will once again be diving into the rabbit hole of memetics in the title MemeKultra, aka MemeKultra, which was a title that come to me sort of after I started production and already done sort of quite a little bit of graphic work for this evening's presentation. Some of you may stick around long enough to watch, so welcome one and all. So we've got 7 watching right now, which isn't a bad way to start the proceedings. Sometimes I've actually started to less than 1. If you take away the fact that sometimes I have 2 devices that I do follow proceedings, and I've got my laptop and my backup phone. But good to see you, Glynis and Devil, the only active members it would seem right now in the chat. So whoever the other viewers are, don't be shy, say hello. We're quite a friendly bunch here, although sometimes there are a couple of unsavory characters that you might not want to indulge or engage with that much. But it is good to see you all, and some of you guys may have realized that in the sort of last week we have sort of got back into a little bit of not necessarily scheduled streaming, but there has been quite a lot of content that I have uploaded in the last 7 days that this will be the 3rd stream in a row, as well as a few uploads which I am trying to sort of spend a little bit more time and effort to put uploads up, as well as just going live, and partly because I do these live streams more than uploads on this channel is because a lot of the time when you sort of do put some effort into putting uploads, quite often is the case when you do upload it, not necessarily everybody watches it to the very end, and it's very hard to sort of get some comments and feedback and interactions on the uploads. But that has sort of changed in the last few weeks, and quite a few of my uploads have actually got sort of more comments and more interactions going once they've been uploaded, and sometimes I'm getting in the live stream, so I do want to try and balance it out a little bit. But as you do know and should be aware of if you follow along regularly, that I do put together a pre-recorded presentation for the live streams, and the reason was because of going to the effort of sort of editing and doing a little bit more sort of attention to the creative side of it rather than the presentation or presenting side of it, and as I said, the sort of extra effort that sort of went in there was very little reward in return in terms of feedback and comment, which is really and truly the only sort of thing I really do encourage and look for and welcome. I'm not all about the thumbs up and necessarily sharing and agreeing and stuff like that. Doesn't mean a dicky to me, but I do enjoy this, and part of why I do put together these presentations and upload videos that very few folks watch is because this is sort of stuff I've always had sort of an interest in, and some of the stuff I have researched, and I have sort of been very interested in conspiracies and researched these sort of things for around 35 years now, and we are in the grandest psychological operation stroke warfare you could have probably not ever dreamed to think would have been a conspiracy theory possibly 3 or 4 years, but here we are living in real life psyops, and it is how the psyop is being carried out and conducted, and more importantly fueled, is what is more of an interest to me than the arguments that lie within the psychological operation, be you on one side of the fence or on the other, which is how the Hegelian works. When they create a problem, they depend on the reaction being a twofold. There'll be those that be for it and those that be against it, and then using their controlled opposition and agent provocateurs, meme agents, such and such, and all the arsenal they have in their disposal to use against us, them to be put into place to manipulate those that are around us. And this is how memetics comes into place, because life in society in general is made up of memes. And when I talk about memes, I'm not talking about the social media memes which you'll probably encounter on a daily basis if you're a social media user, and you'll more often than not see Leonardo DiCaprio me reacting to something, and you can't sort of spell meme without me me in how these sort of memes are sort of slowly and surely influencing the minds of the individuals, and also somehow molding the minds of those individuals into culture creation, or created culture, created cults, and sort of generating hive minds. And I've always said for quite some time that memes are in fact thought implantation, and they are modern forms of propaganda. But this evening we're going to be diving into that rabbit hole a little bit deeper, and you will find some disturbing governmental agencies that we spoke about many times on this channel, that you, I'm sure, have all been too aware of, have got some nefarious dual purpose going on. There's the, hey, we're here for your safety and defense, but really we're here to control and destroy you, but keep thinking it's for your own safety. And when you realize just the amount of dollars and money in people that are researching, looking into, and have perfected memetics, and in particular the extension of memetics has become social media memes, and social media memes are the delivery device for narratives, agendas, propaganda, you name it. Memes can provide that source of input for you, and it really does seem to me that when we see the presentation I got lined up for you, that the way the pandemic is being fueled and the way it is continued is social media memes. And memes are something I've actually had a little bit of an obsession and interest for quite some years. In fact, when I sort of noticed they were becoming popular on social media back in the day, in the early days of sort of social media, I always wondered where they come from. Like, is it just a random individual like myself that's in a basement with a phone, that's bored one day and sort of knocks up a meme, uploads it, and then the next thing 35 million people have shared it? Or is someone creating them, deploying them, making sure that enough people see them so it gets shared that many times? And as I said, memes are multi-purpose. You've got yourself a template, you can insert any message into that and deploy it into social media. Then with the help of agent provocateurs, AI bots acting with several accounts, they can saturate your news feeds, and artificially intelligence synchronized with this software and these agencies can ensure that you see those memes on your screen. Welcome, Jace Ventura. Haven't seen you for a while, or at all, if I'm scratching my head to remember if you have been a visitor and you are a re-offending regular offender. But it is always good to see a few characters, different characters and different faces in the crowd. Glynis, great intro, by the way. Well, thank you, Glynis. That is actually, you've seen it before, or should have seen it before. I mean, I know sometimes people do arrive after the intro, but that is the original intro that I did put together for this channel when I built it almost a year ago. Now Reality Decoded has been around, and it's always created in the aftermath of a sort of community strike, copyright lawsuit fiasco over at TSP TV, which, although that channel is still active and it's got some videos up there, it doesn't seem to be seen. It's like invisible. Anything I do upload on it gets very, very few views or very few responses, pretty much dead in the water. But before we do look into tonight's presentation that I've got lined up for you, MemeKultra, MemeKultra, I really think that's quite catchy. You might even want to start hashtagging that after this evening, which is a form of memetics. And memetics, for those of you who don't know, and you should do if you are a regular offender, because we've talked about this a shit load of time, and there literally is hours and hours of content on my channel regarding memetics, mind control, MemeKultra, Monarch programming. It's again one of those sort of things I'm a little bit fascinated with in the obsessive sense. But I forgot what I was going to say. No, I don't. But yeah, in recent weeks, as I said, these videos that I've been looking at, but before I do, I remembered Memes. It basically translates from the Greek words mimesis, or something like that, mimetic. I can't pronounce the Greek, but it comes from an ancient Greek word. Take that from me, my word for it. Look that up. That is something you can take from me. Usually I always tell you, don't take it from me, make your own mind up. But memetics does have its origins in ancient Greece, and the word means to mimic, and this is how our behavioral patterns from one person to another are spread. I wasn't the first person to wear a baseball cap. I saw other people wearing baseball caps, and I wore a baseball cap. I wasn't the first person to get tattoos. It's because I saw other people with tattoos. I thought, hey, I wouldn't mind getting some tattoos. And literally this works on every single level in things like movies, music, and fashion in particular. Look at the hipster sort of mob. I don't know if there still are hipsters. Don't see very many south of the border, to be quite honest with you, but they were saturated in and around Toronto. And again, this sort of was a form of memetics, societal memetics, not social media memetics, but societal memetics of young beta males seeing other young beta males with top-knot man buns in big old beards and too tight jeans, sort of with bow ties and braces. And then the latest technology there was a very, very cloned look, and this is essentially a form of human cloning. You don't necessarily have to clone DNA. You can clone memetics that people will behave the same, and memology and genealogy are almost identical in the sort of way they are sort of passed down in over, once they're sort of saturated or put into society, they then can be mutated. For example, my DNA is made up of my Polish father and my English mother. I have a daughter who is made up of my Polish DNA and English DNA, and her mother is Mexican. So that is an example of DNA mutations, how it sort of does that. And the same thing happens with memes. You may get the same message, but it might be on a different template, or it might be the same message that has been copied and pasted. There's various ways to mutate memes. But back to the videos I was going to mention. I was just talking about TSP TV and how literally nothing gets viewed over there. Astonishingly enough, in the last month, my Ghostbusters decoded short, I did a little 420 titled "Did Ghostbusters Predict 9/11?" and there was a little sort of teaser hoping that it would introduce more people to watch Ghostbusters Decoded. A little bit of a rabbit hole I went down and put a lot of effort and time researching into, and it'd be nice to sort of get a little bit more feedback on that particular theory that I have there. But the last month, that view has been viewed, and it's very, very rare that once I've uploaded a video or even uploaded a stream that after the fact it gets watched again. But since it's been uploaded, it's been getting sort of daily viewage, and even went over 220 views, although YouTube has decided for some reason, unto its own reason, to remove 30 of that views, and sort of has it stuck under 197. But even more astonishingly, a video that I uploaded on Saturday evening got 200 views in a day, and I did sort of post on Facebook, stop the algorithm, it's broken. 200 views in a day is something that has never ever happened to Reality Decoded, and possibly hasn't even happened over at TSP TV, although maybe once or twice. So there has been a little bit of an increase in viewage, and as I said, there's been an increase in content that I've brought to you in the last weeks. It's been quite a few months that I've been semi-active, and as you know, it's literally 3 months since I arrived and started my new life here in Mexico, where I am still finding my feet, although I am very, very much immersed in embracing the surroundings and the environment, and in particular the weather. But there's many things about Mexico that you sort of got to find out on your own, and you sort of can't find out overnight. But greetings, Tuna, how are you, my friend? It's always glad to see a fellow UKite, even though you are from originally Australia. You're pretty much a Brit for it, for the amount of time that you have spent there. And thank you, Glynis. It is very, very detailed. I found that piece of animation quite some time ago, and actually did use it in a TSP TV stream in which we talked about memes. And there was one scene which I did the me, which again was related to the selfie culture. And selfies, another example of social media memes, and the purpose of selfies was to get us used to surveillance while also providing a database for facial recognition. But they made it fun and quirky and popular, and hashtag the shit out of that stuff and put it out there onto social media platforms. And once it was in social media platforms, monkey see, monkey do, the memetics took over, and now selfies is absolutely a normal thing. You probably can't walk around a town centre or a shopping mall without seeing someone popping a selfie. And I also remember years ago when I used to go backpacking in the 1980s with just a little Kodak. You remember those point and shoot sort of disposable, semi-disposable cameras? Well, back then I used to sort of do a little bit of travelling on my own, and I'd always pop what was known as a selfie before they were selfies. And I sort of almost wish I had some of my old photo albums so I could show you I was selfieing before selfieing was cool. In fact, probably 30 years before selfieing. But that is one example of how social media can influence and change a society. And tonight we are going to look at some very big and well-known organizations that are putting billions into researching military memetics, and even more disturbingly, memetic warfare. And if I told you they were preparing for memetic warfare in 1996, you probably wouldn't believe me. Excuse me, got a little bit of a frog in my throat, but in a time when sort of cell phones were very, very in their infancy, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Tavistock wasn't even a scratch in the pants of the dad's eyes who spawned the bastard sons who then went on to create these platforms. They probably weren't even alive then, but the concept of MySpace, social media, dating apps, all of that thing was very, very distant, dystopian science fiction. But back in the 1990s, the US military were preparing for memetic warfare because they believed that memetic warfare would be the warfare of the future. And the best way to combat an enemy is from within, by changing their beliefs and behaviors through a form of memetics. And as I was saying, the virus is being spread mostly through social media feeds and the memes that people read that form their opinions on the psychological operation come from social media memes and social media feeds. And this is what we are going to be looking at this evening, guys. So that being said, we're down to 7. I do sometimes hope that we get to double figures before I do start the presentation, but the lucky few that have chose to tune in, hopefully you'll find this interesting. And again, do be advised that we are doing this as entertainment, education and informative purposes, and any content contained within the following presentation is done so under the Fair Use Act and YouTube algorithm. On my best wishes and on my behalf, please by all means monetize any content in this presentation to the behalf and the holders of the said copyrights. They can earn as much money off of this video as they want to, which is interesting. And funny enough, I'm saying that is because the 2 videos that I've had that have sort of gone semi-viral in my standards, by no means internet viral, both contained copyrights that the copyrights went to the copyright holder. So maybe there might be a glitch in the matrix and we can almost use the algorithm against itself to maybe try and gain a few more like-minded, soon-to-be regular offenders. That being said, guys, let's get things into place. Smoke if you got them, sit yourselves back in your lounger, kick up your feet, but most importantly, switch on your minds, pay attention, because you might not after this, or you shouldn't by now at least, if you have been paying attention to previous memetic presentations in mind control, you should have a little bit of an awareness by now, but hopefully by the end of this evening you have a greater awareness. So I'm going to switch off the mic, turn off the camera and join you in chat. So we are about to proceed with this evening's presentation, Meme Control.
Richard Dawkins coined the term meme in his 1976 book, The Selfish Gene. And what he proposed was that human culture was composed, at least in part, of elements, units, that were like genes in that they were copied and copied and copied and copied and copied. And it was the differential copying, the differential replication of these items, these memes, that accounted for the excellent design of so much in human culture. This is a very repugnant and offensive idea to many people, especially in the humanities. They wanted to hang on to the idea of the godlike genius creator who, out of sheer conscious, brilliant comprehension, makes all these wonderful things, whether they're poems or bridges or whatever. He was saying, in effect, well, yes, people do make amazing things, but if you look at the projects in detail, you see that they couldn't do that if they hadn't filled their head with all these informational things, which are like genes, which are also information, but they're not passed down through the germline. They're not passed down through the sperm and the egg. You don't get them with your genes, you get them from the ambient culture, from your parents, from your peers, from the society in which you're raised. It requires perception. A lot of people think, well, wait a minute, there's a huge disanalogy here. Genes are DNA. What's the DNA of memes? And the first thing you have to appreciate is, no, genes aren't DNA. Genes are the information carried by the DNA. Genes are no more DNA than poems are made of ink. I mean, you can send somebody a poem that's written in ink, or you can say aloud. There's many different ways of transmitting that poem or saving that poem from one place to another. The same thing is true of genes. Once you get used to thinking of genes as not DNA, but the information carried by the patterns of the nucleotides in DNA, then you can see that there really is a nice parallel. Well then, what's playing the role of DNA in the land of culture? What are the physical implementations? Well, they're wonderfully various. There is ink on paper. There's lines carved into stones. There's lines drawn in the sand. There's skywriting. And, of course, there's what we're doing right now. There's audible language. And one of the great features of language, not sufficiently appreciated by those who aren't linguists, is that what makes language a potent medium for the transmission of information is that it's digitized in the same way that DNA is digitized. It's composed of fundamental elements. In the case of DNA, it's A, C, G, T, 4 different nucleotides. In the case of language, it's 20 to 30 phonemes. We are designed to pick up the phonemes of our native language and then automatically to categorize incoming utterances by correcting them to the norm of whatever the phonemes in our language are. And it doesn't matter whether I say dog or dog or dog or dog or dog. It all comes out as dog. Doesn't take any effort to recognize that these are all tokens of the same type. That's digitization. And that's what makes it possible to transmit information from one person to another, and the person in the middle doesn't have to understand what it means. All they have to do is copy the sequence of phonemes, and the message will get through. It looks as if we're pretty stupid. We're just walking, breathing vectors that are carrying all these memes around in our heads, sort of like having a cold, like viruses. And they are like viruses. And the first memes were even more like viruses because they weren't particularly useful. They were just habits that were catchy in one way or another, and they spread or not. And they didn't have to do any good. They just had to be not too harmful. And they kept, as long as their vectors stayed alive and spread them, then they could spread. They could thrive just like the cold virus. Cold virus isn't for anything except for making more copies of the cold virus. And early memes were just like that. But eventually, competition for utility arose, and now memes, whether they were words or other ways of doing things that actually were of benefit, would spread differentially because they were better ways of doing things that could be not even recognized. It's just that those who adopted them fared better than those who didn't. And before you know it, you have competitive differential replication of cultural items. And that's what does all the heavy lifting of design work and getting human culture off the ground. It's only very recently that we've had people who style themselves as meme creators, as designers of memes. And think about coined words. You have a vocabulary of 50, 60, 70,000 words. Very few of them were deliberately coined by anybody. Yet they're all useful, and they are all robust enough to survive until they go extinct. Words go extinct all the time. So it is with culture much more generally. It's composed of elements which have histories, they have lineages, they can combine in ways that genes normally don't, but can. And the result is this tremendous creative stew of differential replication, creating ideas that people latch onto and benefit from without having to understand why they're good or how they're good, and they never would have invented them themselves. That is a brilliant piece of engineering, and nobody invented it.
So welcome, guys, to this latest installment titled Meme Control, where once again we will be diving and digging a little bit deeper into the familiar rabbit hole here at Shit Video Productions of Memetics. And off the bat, we're going to look at an article from 1996, 25 years ago. It was published on Wired magazines, or in Wired magazine, and republished on their website. And it is titled Memetic Engineering. And it starts out by saying, what if culture and even consciousness itself were nothing more than an artifact of the interaction of selfish memes that were ideas capable of replicating and co-evolving with supreme indifference to their impact on human hosts. A meme-centered paradigm of human culture and consciousness is, to say the least, disconcerting. In Consciousness Explained, cognitive theorist Daniel Dennett, who we just heard from at the beginning of this episode, captures the horror graphically. If not you felt that he captured the graphics horrifically, is down to you. But the author does go on to say he doesn't know about you, but he's not initially attracted by the idea of his brain being a dung heap of sorts in which larvae of other people's ideas renew themselves before sending out copies of themselves in an informational disposition aporia. It does seem to rob the author of his mind and his mind of its importance. And he goes on to say, as an author and a critic, who is in charge according to this vision? Is it ourselves, or is it the memes that are implanted in our minds? A meme-focused vision of culture and consciousness acknowledges forthrightly that memes are not mere random effluvia of human experience, but powerful control mechanisms that impose a largely invisible deep structure on a wide range of complex phenomena. And those complex phenomena could include language, scientific thinking, political behavior, productive work, religion, philosophical discourse, and even history itself. But consider the matter more closely. What if it were possible to construct a new science of the meme called memetic engineering that would be analogous to the discipline of genetic engineering? Such a science would allow us to manipulate complex patterns of replicating memes and achieve consistent and predictable manifestations in the form of a precisely altered cultural phenotype. Who would then be in charge of the course of cultural evolution? Ourselves or the selfish, in contemporary times, in brackets, social media memes? It may sound like science fiction, but a possible precursor to memetic engineering has already been studied at the Santa Fe Institute. Again, this is back in 1996 when they'd already carried out studies at the Santa Fe Institute, and it was called the 2050 Project. It was an effort jointly pursued by SFI and the World Resources Institute, and they used a computer modeling tool called Sugarscape to construct a cartoon history that mimics the true history of ancient Native American tribes. And then it assesses the impact of changes in various cultural inputs, availability of resources, migration patterns, altered assumptions concerning diffusion of cultural mores on alternative histories that might have transpired but were foreclosed by intervening events in real history. So the objectives of this research were breathtaking in their implications, and they were described by the investigators in Growing Artificial Societies and Social Science from the Bottoms Up, a project monograph. The board aim of this research is to begin the development of a more unified social science, or a more unified society that can be molded and modeled according to the memes that are distributed on a regular basis that will influence the minds and the behavioral patterns of the people that are recipients to them. In a rational environment that simulates demographics, the transmission of cultural conflict, economics, disease, and the emergence of groups and co-adaptation within the environment, all from the bottom up, can be created and manipulated through the course of memetics. Research initiatives like the 2050 Project hold out the prospect of such a new kind of social science. Bear in mind, guys, this was 25 years ago, where this new kind of social science is now everyday practice. As well as the possibility of this new science, memetic engineering, and while predictions about the pace of scientific innovation are notoriously risky. The author's guess is that by the beginning of the 21st century, the embryonic field of a computer-based memetic studies will either reveal itself as an intellectual dry hole, or it will prove to be a technology of extraordinary power. We are 21 years into the 21st century, and it seems to me, at least, that the latter of those two predictions has come to be, that technology has become an extraordinary power, and the technology of memetics has become an extraordinary power within the extraordinary power of technology itself. If, the author goes on to say, the second scenario comes to pass, which it has, what are the long-term implications for our self-image as a species, endowed as we are with at least the illusion of free will and blessed, perhaps, uniquely among all the creatures on this earth, with the baffling gift of conscious thought? First, the dark scenario. Memes might come to be viewed explicitly as primary actors in the drama of human history, which they are. Memes that circulate on social media do provide social commentary on contemporary times, as well as influence the minds of the masses into certain demographics into believing what is information and what is news, when really and truly all it is propaganda and thought implantation for the memetic engineering, and engineering a memetic culture or subculture, if you will, of people that think, behave and act the same and repeat the same pre-designed, pre-approved rhetorics. Now, in Daniel Dennett's vision, he prophesied that the human mind would become a mere meat computer, and that conscious human beings would become puppets that are dancing to the blind watchmaker's hidden melodies. But is this a fair reading of the philosophical implications of memes? Perhaps not, if we consider the matter carefully. And he goes on to quote somebody from another book. But understanding the often unconscious nature of genetic control is the first step towards understanding that we are all puppets, and that our best hope for even partial liberation is to try to decipher the logic of the puppeteer, which is a little bit what I try to do with decoding our reality. Although if not, I am accurately decoding reality, that probably lays just within the mind of myself. You can drop your comments below if you think I've done a good or half-hearted job of decoding reality or not right now. But so in the reclaim of human culture, the author finalizes by saying, then our best hope for eventual liberation from an endless succession of dangerous ideologies and blinding prejudices, our best chance for overthrowing the tyranny exercised by blindly replicating means indifferent to their often devastating impact on the moral vessels they may selfishly commandeer, may lie in a 21st enlightenment centered at least in part of a new rigorous, almost said religious then, a new rigorous science of the meme. So guys, memes are something that we see each and every day on social media, and even if we share and agree with them or copy and paste them or pay attention to them, one way or another they enter our mind on a subconscious or fully conscious level. As I said, if we take a conscious effort to stop, share and agree that meme, it is implanted. But even if we are scrolling through our news feed and scroll past that news feed, that meme on our news feed, the message of that meme is still implanted within the mind. So as I said, we are going to be hearing from Richard Dawkins next, and then we are going to be looking into military memetics. and mimetic warfare. Yes, those are both things. Before we do have a look at a few examples of contemporary modern day memetics that I'm sure many of you may have encountered in your daily social media surfing. So stay tuned, guys. Meme control will continue.
Sense. Wherever you have memes that are copied from one brain to another, you potentially have the possibility of a kind of natural selection. Now, it's a big step from that to say there actually is natural selection. Presumably, if we go with the analogy of the tunes, some tunes are more likely to be whistled and copied than others because they're just better tunes. They're more catchy. We actually use the word catchy. So there is a kind of natural selection that we all sort of know about. Various objections have been raised to the theory of memes, and by the way, I should add that I only ever proposed it in order to downplay the gene as the only unit of natural selection. I wanted to say, look, you've just read this book, The Selfish Gene, which is all about genes as the level at which natural selection acts. It doesn't have to be that way. The level of natural selection is certainly not the individual organism, nor is it the group. But it could be some other kind of molecule on another planet, or it could be the meme on this planet. I wasn't intending it to be a contribution to the theory of human culture. Others have tried to make it so, which is fine. I'm delighted that they have. I mean, Dan Dennett and Susan Blackmore, for example. Objections have been raised to it, like the mutation rate's too high. The thing about genes is that they are exceedingly accurately copied. Memes are not. Let's imagine the game that Americans call telephone and we here call Chinese whispers, where you have a line of people and I whisper a rhyme into the ear of the first person, who whispers the rhyme into the ear of the next person, who whispers it into the next one, and so on. And the funny part of the game is that usually the rhyme becomes completely garbled by the time it reaches the other end. But if the rhyme was sufficiently short and easy to remember, if it were just something very short, like too many cooks spoil the broth, that would probably get to the end of 20 people without mutating. So we all know that it's perfectly possible for unmutated memes to survive. But we all know it because we all speak English. We all learn an English vocabulary and we can all repeat what other people have said in our native language. And it doesn't matter that some of us say it in an English accent and some in a Scottish accent and some in an American accent, some in a female voice, some in a male voice. These are all trivial mutations, and they're trivial in exactly the sense, in precisely the sense that they don't get copied from one generation of the game of Chinese whispers to the other. I mean, let's persist with this example. I whisper into the ear of the first person a rhyme. This first person whispers the same rhyme into the ear of the next person, but she does it in a female voice. But it doesn't matter. The message survives. The next person does it in an Irish accent. It doesn't matter. The message survives. The exact words survive. And there's a perfectly good operational test of this. If you take 20 people and play Chinese whispers, and you then take a tape recording of each person's whispering, and you've got 20 tapes now, 20 tape recordings, and you then find an independent observer and you say, here are these 20 tape recordings, put them in order, just listen to them and see if you can work out which was the first generation, which the second generation, which the third, and so on. They won't be able to do it unless there's a definite mutation, a word changes, then they'll do it. But if it's just a change of accent, a change of pitch of voice, there will be nothing, there'll be no consistent change as you go down the generations. Generation 3 and Generation 17 will be indistinguishable as far as the actual words are concerned. Now, that would probably be true if it's a very simple rhyme in a language that all the people in the line understand. But if they're English speakers, and the rhyme is a rhyme in Bulgarian, then what will pass down the line will mutate very rapidly, because all that the people can possibly do is repeat it phonetically, and it'll come out completely garbled by the time it gets to the other end. That's a bad meme. But the mere fact that it's, I don't think anybody will dispute that it's obvious that provided that the rhyme is short and in a language that everybody in the line understands, in most cases, or in many cases at least, it's sufficient to say in many cases it will survive intact. And the important point is that you will not be able to tell the order in which those messages were enunciated.
Here we are at throughtheLookingGlassNews.wordpress.com, and their little header says there, "We are all mad here. How do you know I'm mad? You must be," said the cat, "or you wouldn't have come here." And that might be applicable to some of you regular offenders who keep coming back to Reality Decoded for more shit video productions. But we are about to go through the looking glass, indeed, and we are going to scratch the surface. It's something that is known as military memetics, and this particular tutorial from Robotic Technology Inc. was presented back in 2006, between 2006 and 2009, to good old DARPA. And after this, we will have a little look at DARPA's involvement in memetics. But we are, as I said, gonna scratch the surface, because this, believe it or not, military memetics is a rabbit hole all of its own, which could at least 6 parts to cover all that is contained within this tutorial that was presented, as I said, to DARPA around 12, 13, maybe even 14 years ago. But anyway, we're not going to look at too much of part 1 in particular. But we are going to read the headline there. The purpose of military memetics. Program memetics as a scientific discipline. Meme definitions are some of the things included. And Robot Technology Inc. tutorial on military memetics. The potential of military worth of memetics. As I said, this is got an awful lot of information in ground to cover. But it does say here, just to confirm what I told you, that this presentation is based on projects Robotic Technology Inc. performed for the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, aka DARPA, between 2006 and 2009. And we thank DARPA for their vision and support. Make of that what you will. I'm not somebody that would particularly go out of my way to thank DARPA for everything, particularly because all of the goings on that DARPA seem to be doing that seem to be very, very nefarious. But anyway, part 1 of the 6-part tutorial by Dr. Robert Finkelstein. That sounds like a character from a UHF rather, the Weird Al Yankovic movie from the 1980s. But he is the president of Robotic Technology Inc. And the presentation was based on programs Robotic Technology Inc. performed for DARPA during the time that we just said. And the PDF is available for download at the Robotic Technology website, and you could click the link if you were on the website of your own. But the document is 152 slides and covers the following subjects. We're going to look at the subjects, and we're going to look at one subject in particular. As I said, you can download the full tutorial in one article if you choose to. And as I said, I'm not going to, because it would take forever and a day to get through, although not literally forever and a day. That was just a figure of speech. But part one was an introduction, an executive summary, and a highlight of the purpose of military memetics. Part two was memetics, metrics, and submetrics. Part 3 was potential military worth of memetics. Part 4, which is what we're going to be looking at, memes, narrative, and in particular social media and culture, and how military memetics can influence and control those things. Part 5 was memetics and true believers, and part 6 was neuroeconomics and memetics. But as I said, we're not going to look too much in it, because it is very, very, very long-winded and contains an awful lot of information. But it was basically designed to sort of combat, or the purpose that they said it was designed for was to combat radicalized terrorism, in particular ISIS and Al-Qaeda types. And they figured that if we could infiltrate these subcultures at a grassroots level and then change the way they believe, think, and talk through a series of controlled memes, they would then become a less than hostile enemy, and would be easier to defeat and control. But as I said, very, very, very long-winded article in itself, with a hell of a lot of information that we could cover and would take an awful lot of time. But I'm going to quickly shut down now and take you over to part 4, which is about social media memes and how the military is going to influence those. So this is part 4. Of the military memetics tutorial presented to DARPA by the Robotic Technology Inc. And part 4 concentrates on memes, the narrative, and social media and culture. Now, we're not going to spend too much time reading every last word of this, because pretty much it just sort of gives highlights as what is contained within the slideshow of part 4. This is just sort of a list of what is included. This isn't sort of the information itself. But it does say that social media have and smartphones have become a highly effective and efficient means for propagating memes and for spreading them. And they are wonderful and effective, efficient tools for state and non-state actors and for strategic and tactical objectives. Interesting that they used the term actors rather than individuals, but they can also, social media can use memes, and they use the example of the Middle Eastern uprising as how they can efficiently create, fuel, and carry out such agendas if they so desired. But they are, or they were back then in 2006 and up to 2009, creating tools and techniques that would rapidly detect, identify, and evaluate memes propagated by social media, and then to be able to rapidly create and propagate counter memes to combat the undesirable memes. And they did also say that a framework for a meme war is a meme control center. And what exactly is a meme control center? Well, funny you should ask, because this is what a meme control center is. In its concept, which is probably active and up and running now, and it pretty much is up and running under a different name. We'll find out what that is called now shortly. But in its concept, the meme control center would consist of a meme processing center and a counter meme processing center. So it's an MPC and CPC. A memetics for intelligence and national defense research and a development center provides the tools and techniques implied by the MPC and the CPC. So that's the Counter Meme Processing Center and the Meme Processing Center. The Meme Processing Center is highly automated with, for example, information mining and semantic processing. So when they say highly automated, they mean artificially intelligent algorithms that data collection websites and then use the data through a series of processing to find out the best ways to propagate new memes to control the desired targets. The CPC, and remember this is the counter meme patrol. What is it? See, I've forgotten already. It is processing. My forgiveness is begged there. So anyway, the counter meme processing center is to include a multidisciplinary meme engineering staff that would contain cultural anthropologists, linguistics, semanticists, if I'm saying that right, excuse me, he's got too many T's and C's, psychologists, social network analysts, OR analysts, intelligence, and this is the most disturbing name on the list, psychological operation analysts, as well as economists. Now, these are all people that they feel need to be in the counter meme processing center rather than the meme processing center. And make of that why you will, why they would need such highly intelligent people, including psychological operation analysts, as well as psychologists and social media network analysts. But it goes on to sort of say how culture, values, and such forth are created through a series of memes and how they can be controlled through memes, and it does give a few graphics and examples for the show, for the slideshow, but we're not going to spend too much on it there, except for I am going to say a narrative is a long story, is a story. It's long or it is short, past or present, or future, with or without much detail and told for any purpose, official or unofficial. Cultural narratives are important in forming and maintaining cultures of nations or other groups, in giving them a sense of identity and purpose to individuals within a culture or subculture. National and strategic narratives describe the core interests of a nation and provide a foundation of statecraft and national security. And an example given is the United States post-World War I strategic narrative provided the base for the global struggle against communism. But as I say, guys, we're not going to go too much deeper into this. If you do wish to look into it on your own, you can do so. I'm not going to provide you links in the description because that would just be breastfeeding you, and technically you would just be memetically researching what I've already researched. But Robotic Technology Inc. tutorial on military memetics is all you need to know, and put that in a search engine of your choice. So as I say, guys, memetical warfare, military memetics are things that exist, and we started out looking at an organization that carried out a presentation and tutorial for DARPA. What did DARPA do with that information after that tutorial? We're about to find out. Here we are at the DARPA website, where after they were tuitioned by the Robotic Technologies Inc. on military memetics, they went away and they set up their own meme processing center stroke counter meme processing center, and they named it the Narrative Networks Project. And this is a very short little bit of a paragraph on their website, and it goes to say, why do people accept and act on certain kinds of information while dismissing others? Why are some narrative themes successful at building support for terrorism? And what role can narratives play in causing and helping to treat post-traumatic stress disorder? These questions deal with the role narratives that play in human psychology and sociology, and their answers have strategic implications for defense missions. DARPA launched the Narrative Networks program to understand how narratives influence human cognition and behavior, and they apply those findings in international security contexts. The program aims to address the factors that contribute to radicalization, violent social mobilization, insurgency, and terrorism among foreign populations, and of course domestic populations and social media populations in particular, and to support conflict prevention and resolution, effective communication in innovative PTSD treatments. Although it doesn't really go very much into telling anything about how it's going to be innovative in treating PTSD sufferers. But it does go on to say how narratives may consolidate memory, they may shape motions, and they may accrue heuristics and biases in judgment. They may influence group decisions. To determine their influence on cognitive functions requires a working theory of narratives and an understanding of what role they play in security contexts, and an examination of how to systematically analyze narratives and their psychological or neurobiological impact. Narrative Networks has 3 parallel tracks of research and developments. 1. Development quantitative analytic tools to study narratives and their effects on human behavior in security contexts. 2. To analyze the neurobiological impact of narratives on hormones and neurotransmitters, reward processing and emotion cognition interactions, and finally, number 3, to develop models to influence in social and environmental contexts, developing sensors to determine their impact on individuals and groups, and suggest doctrinal modifications. That's what DARPA did with their information that they obtained from the military memetics tutorial that they received between 2006 2009. But if it's not disturbing enough that DARPA are in on the act of memetical warfare and militarized memetics, we're going to go and look at a couple of other alphabets that are also arm deep in memes. Stay tuned, guys. Alright, guys, so we just saw how DARPA are involved in memetic warfare, and this PDF that's 16 pages long is titled "It's Time to Embrace Memetic Warfare," and it was actually written by an author for the behalf, or on behalf, or for the purpose of, as you can see there, NATO, another one of the alphabet agencies, and it just starts off by saying that it was originally published in the winter of 2015 as part of the Defense Strategic Communications peer-reviewed journal. And as I said, it is 16 pages long. We're not going to read all of the 16 pages. I did just want to put this in and just show you that there are some pretty big defense and peacekeeping organizations that seem very, very interested and intent on adapting and gaining expertise in memetic warfare. And the foreword says, ideas and influence travel fast in today's globalized information environment. The ability to influence narrative and perception has become arguably the most leveraged participatory and relevant form of power. This is what this 2015 paper is all about. The war over narrative, aggressively delivered through guerrilla online communications known as memetic warfare. A year and a half have passed since this paper was published, and at the time there is significant concern about ISIS's ability to recruit and spread its message online. Governments were struggling to counter Islamist guerrilla communications tactics, and the journey to writing, it began with a simple question: why aren't we weaponizing trolling and memetics to fight ISIS and other enemies? The author had seen the effectiveness of these crafts in political contexts, so why not use it to destroy ISIS or any other enemy for that matter? This paper was aimed to do two things. First, it is to set out, advance the concept of a memetic warfare in the same way cyber warfare expanded the military into hacking and security. This paper argues for a more expansive view of strategic communications on the social media battlefield, thus what is commonly known as your social media newsfeed. It proposes memetic warfare as a guerrilla form of information operations that is needed in our rapidly evolving social media driven information environment. The second aim of the paper was to explore the barriers and considerations to making memetic warfare a reality, to start a conversation against the organizational, bureaucratic, doctrinal, legal, and ethical considerations involvement in this. The intent was to push NATO member governments to take memetic warfare seriously as a craft and as a threat. In 2017, at time of writing, this paper feels particularly relevant because on March the 7th of that year, WikiLeaks released a mass leak of nearly 9,000 classified documents that reveal the CIA's extensive hacking and electronic intercept capabilities. Instantaneously, the entire world gained access to highly sensitive documents about sources and methods of the United States national security. The conversation among Americans shifted from the threats of Russian hacking to threats of U.S. intelligence community, sowing mistrust and confusion. It was the memetic equivalent of a tactical nuke. The Vault release happened in the context of a larger discussion about influence campaigns, fake news, and government malfeasance. US lawmakers recently held hearings specifically on how to counter foreign propaganda and information warfare. People are sensing that the battle over narrative is getting dirtier and more intense. The lines between political dialogue, journalism, and information warfare are burning. Concepts like fake news are now in the public consciousness. Memetic warfare offers a conceptual framework to think about these issues. The author has his views changed since writing his paper, and his experience since writing it have stimulated a more advanced operational view on memetic warfare and a better sense of how to execute a campaign, the strategies, the tactics, the resources, and the capabilities and organizational structures to embrace these memetic warfare tactics. However, the biggest change of view the author is being honest about is a nagging sense of dread. Memetic warfare is only going to get more and more intense, and this has some positive aspects, a more efficient surfacing for facts, for instance, but the free societies must be concerned about the corrosive effect these battles, which are often invisible to the normal eye, may have on our sense of trust in each other and our institutions, which is exactly what is going on in today's contemporary times with the memetic warfare that is helping to perpetuate the current psychological operation that we are living under. And I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about, and it is through a series of memes that I believe that this is continuing to the memes are the fuel that are continuing to help this psyop burn, and the narrative is being controlled on both sides of the argument, and the narrative is being delivered through a series of memetics. But as with any potential weapon, memetical warfare cannot be afforded to play ignorant. Just because we are confronted with something too unconventional for traditional institutions to confront, we must prepare for the worst, and we must view it as an opportunity as well as a threat. Memetic warfare awareness shows that this type of combat is everywhere, and it is unseen to the naked eye, or the normal eye, as it was suggested in this article. Those who dominate the narrative, military, powerful or not, ultimately defeat their opponents. And that was written by Jeff Gairacer of Washington, D.C. in March 26, interestingly, in March 3, never mind. But anyway, it is a few more pages long, which we're not going to be looking into, but you can see a list of some of the things. Develop memetic warfare conceptually, allocate better resource, embrace the memetic mindset, make space for it legally, bureaucratically, and ethically, and keep learning, and more importantly, experimenting. So that, as I said, is part of the opening to a very, very long and very, very interesting article on memetic warfare that was written for NATO and some of its co-organizations. So one last alphabet agency to look at before we go and look at some modern day social media memes, which I'm sure one or two of you may have come across in the last few days and weeks on your social media feeds. Stay tuned. We find ourselves at newspunch.com, where the slogan says, "Mainstream fears to tread." So swiftly moving down below the header, CIA. Meme warfare. A document reveals plans to control your mind. What more do I need to say other than let's see what the CIA meme warfare document reveals about the plans to control your mind? And there are some agents, some military personnel by the looks of things in one of these meme deployment tanks that are part of the meme processing center that comes out of the DARPA's narrative network project. I'm sure in and around the sort of mid 2010s, there was a sort of few articles that I come across and read about how sort of military personnel that had sort of maybe injuries or wounded in action that could no longer sort of carry out active duties in sort of being in the sort of frontline battlefield conditions were being relocated to offices such as this for the purpose and intent of becoming social media trolls or meme agents that would deliver narratives and sort of propaganda designed for whatever they were being recruited to sell. So moving on, recently surfaced CIA document reveals that the military are going to create a meme warfare division tasked with controlling the minds of the American people. And this is from again back in 2017, around the time that article or PDF we just saw, Time to Embrace Medical Warfare, was being circulated and distributed amongst NATO and its partners. But according to the US defense documents, memes can be used to win war and influence the general population. It's something that I've been telling you for over a year now, that memes are mind control and they are thought implantation. But some of you think that they're just saying what you're thinking, and that's why you share and agree with them. But I suggest and offer to you the question: are they saying what you're thinking, or are they telling you what to think? I think it would be the latter. But in a paper published in 2005 by Michael B. Prosser, the US military are able to weaponize and diffuse memes in order to defeat an enemy ideology and win over the masses. And we are in a state of memetical warfare. The battlefields are social media themes, and many people do not realize that they have been inadvertently recruited as frontline infantry meme deployers. And I'm pretty sure you, as much well as I, must have that one friend who is all about the memes, doesn't communicate any other way. He's all about the memes. I'm all about the memes, the memes, the memes. Sorry for that. But anyway, Prosser's paper proposes the creation of a meme warfare center, which we just looked at, was proposed in 2006 and was presented to DARPA, who then created the narrative network. It exists, folks. It's not conspiracy. It's out there. I'm providing you with the information and all you need to know to go and do your own research, just as I did when I was putting this together. If this is any of interest to you, then please, I encourage you to go and do your own research on this subject, because it is fascinating as well as it is disturbing. But it will be tasked with advising the president on meme generation, transmission, and a detailed analysis on enemy-friendly and non-combatant populations. And according to memetics, a growth industry in US military operation, a proposed meme warfare center, an MWC, as a staff organization, has the primary mission to advise the commander on meme generation transmission, coupled with detailed analysis on the enemy friendly. And again, they just repeated what they said above. But the MWC aims for a full spectrum capability of meme generation analysis, quality control assurance, and organic transmission apparatus. The proposed MWC structure lays in stark contrast to the ADHOC nature of current IO and JPOTF formations. Don't ask me what any of those stand for. I'm sure someone, or hopefully someone in the chat will be able to tell us what those are. But nonetheless, we're concentrating on memes, and military memes are military operations that produce memes, both intended and unintended. The unintended effects of memes are normally regarded as second or third order effects. On occasion, second and third order effects are the product of deliberate planning. However, many times they cannot be accurately forecasted. Memes, as defined above, are cultural bits of information replicated and transmitted from one mind to another mind. Memes influence, affect, generate, and alter ideas. A central theme behind this replication and transmission is dual and societal contact and interaction. Contact in the sense connotes both and direct and indirect means. Contact with an enemy, friendlies, or the community at large provides a vehicle or medium for memes to travel and replicate. And there is a little diagram of how the meme center would work. Right? The good memes creates the bad memes, and out they go. It's far too small for me to read or see, even if I zoomed in. But that was short and sweet. And again, if you want to look more into the CIA's Meme Warfare Center, please do so. But there are 3 alphabet agencies of particular interest that should be somewhat of a concern to you, that they are all up spending billions and billions of dollars and have teams of experts and analysts working together on medical warfare for both the counter and the official narrative purposes. So that was a little bit of an introduction in scratching the surface on military memetics and memetic warfare. And as I said, please feel free to do further research of your own on this subject. And if you want to see me research these topics more fully and more in depth, let me know. Only happy to oblige. So let's go and look at social media memes and a little bit of the part that they are playing in modern day society and some of the ammunition that is being used in the modern day meme war that many of us are oblivious to is going on, but is the ways and the means for the continuation of the psychological operation we've been living under for the last 18 months. So what we are seeing now is what most people associate as to being memes, and what we are looking at is a selection of random memes I collected together for the purposes of this. And some of you will be all too familiar with some of the images that you are seeing, if not the rhetoric or the memetics contained within the templates. The templates can be used over and over again. And as I said, this is what most people commonly associate with when they hear the word memes. But social media and internet memes come in sort of 3 folds: visual, audio, and written. And what we are kind of seeing now is a little bit of a mix of visual and verbal. You get to sort of read the written message, and you get to see a picture that accompanies it. And this is why we see so many familiar templates, because they're very, very familiar to us, and that triggers sort of a comfort sensation within the mind, and then it is a little bit more susceptible to receive whatever message is contained within that meme. And not all memes are necessarily nefarious. Some of them really are mostly fun, or mostly once upon a time were fun, sort of had their origins and were sort of birthed in fandom. Game of Thrones was a particular show, and it had a lot of sort of social media fan groups that saturated those fan groups with memes related to the show, and somehow they sort of evolved and expanded into social media news feeds to sort of provide social media commentary. But having seen the evidence for military memetics and memetic warfare, my opinion is these are tools of mind control, thought implantation, influence, and have become an extension of conventional memes. And if anything, the sort of protocols that are associated with memes of a cultural nature are also as applicable to social media memes. So we are going to pay a little attention, as I said, to some other forms of memetics that we will see on social media platforms, and certainly something that you will be all too familiar with. If you do use social media and you do look on your newsfeed, you will see nothing but every other post as being a meme. So stay tuned as we do continue to investigate memetics and the social influence that social media memes have over society.
So in 2013, Richard Dawkins revisited his original term meme to clarify that an internet meme is different than the meme that he once described. An internet meme is a meme or a cultural idea that's been deliberately altered by human creativity. So via the internet and cyberculture, these things become digital artistic expressions. So let's take a look at what it takes and how people make these artistic masterpieces. Memes are essentially comics, but without a formal outlet like a newspaper. The first and most popular form of internet meme was image macros, and Grumpy Cat here is a great example. It's a caption superimposed on an image. Rather than putting your witty comment below a photo, you're putting it right on top. So though they've evolved, internet memes today generally follow this same format. But arguably, creating a successful meme today versus, say, 6 years ago requires more time, a thorough knowledge of current events, and even familiarity with complex design and editing software. So for instance, all of these things come together, and you really need to be paying attention to what's happening both on the internet and outside of the internet in order to understand these memes. For instance, traditional schooling requires that students study classic novels as they appear in other forms of entertainment and even conversation. It makes people cultured. Knowledge of popular internet memes functions in the same way, especially among younger generations. And if you're not keeping up, it's really easy to fall behind. And clearly, I've been there. And then they make memes about that too. So if you don't get it, you're not in the loop. But why do you want to be in the loop? Who cares, right? Humans have a desire to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And the validation you receive on the internet from a meme well done is not a commentary on the way you look or the way you dress. Rather, it's a more personal level of validation of your cleverness, intellect, and worldly knowledge. And as an added bonus, maybe you'll leave something immortal behind. Another human desire that's oddly contrary to fitting in is to stand out, to leave a legacy, to be remembered. So I had a meme go a little bit viral once. STEM professors, no curve, no study guide, no mercy. Liberal arts professors, that test was too hard. Here's a picture of a unicorn. And now this was an actual email from one of my professors. And the play here is on a stigma amongst university students that liberal arts students do not work as hard or do not have as rigorous of a curriculum as our business or engineering peers. And as these themes regularly occur in the UT Memes Facebook page, I decided to post this. And so people were commenting, tagging, sharing this. And while all of these things seem small, I was left feeling like I had accomplished something, even though in reality, I had accomplished nearly nothing. But that's how it goes. I mean, virality is pretty rare, unless you're Kylie Jenner, who is the world record, well, runner-up world record holder for the highest number of likes on Instagram behind a picture of an egg. But that's how it goes. Compared to the number of people on this planet and the number of things posted per day, a very small number of things reach beyond your immediate followers. And unless you're Kylie Jenner, that following is at most a few hundred friends that might see your post. So in 2013, researchers at Indiana University conducted a study to see how internet memes go viral. Now, I hate to burst your bubble, but apparently what they found is that it's a result of complete random chance. Once an internet meme is shared beyond the first person that posts it, that exponentially increases its likelihood to be shared again by introducing it to a whole new crowd of followers, and therefore exponentially increasing its likelihood to go viral. On the other hand, if an internet meme does not get shared, it dies out quickly and everyone forgets it ever happened. In this way, internet memes function like a virus, spreading like a contagion and dying out without a host. Hence the term virality. So armed with this awareness, anyone on the internet has the potential to become famous. Anyone can create a meme and maybe go viral and be virtually free of social consequences, especially if the joke that they make is a little bit offensive. Now, on most platforms, there's no authorship attached, so why does it matter? Except on Facebook. Facebook has your name, your face, your friends, and usually your most sincere social brand. Not too long ago, recently accepted students to Harvard University formed a Facebook page in which they shared memes to build community before their arrival to campus. However, university officials caught wind of this group and rescinded 10 students' acceptances to the university upon the discovery of images mocking sexual assault, the Holocaust, and the deaths of children. Now, these examples mark extreme topics of taboo in American culture, and these are extreme examples of the social consequences of internet meme creation. But most of the time, no one faces any consequences. People feel freer to flirt with the boundaries of the taboo and create offensive memes for what psychology professor John Suler calls the online disinhibition effect. People behave differently online than they do in person, for what Professor Suler delineates in 6 key contributors. But I find 4 of these incredibly key to internet meme creation. The first of these, dissociative anonymity. The ability to hide your true identity online allows you to remove yourself from responsibilities of your actions. Additionally, there's invisibility, and that's a lack of physical contact with other users on the internet. Moreover, that lack of physical contact often leads to dissociative or dehumanizing behaviors of other online users. By not viewing people as actual people with real feelings, this often leads to the production of especially offensive internet memes via solipsistic interjection. And finally, the minimization of authority. The lack of an authoritative figure online feeds the production of especially offensive memes. And for now, there's no law against creating offensive memes. A law against creating any kind of meme would be encroaching on our freedom of speech. So all of these things come together, all of these behaviors forming the online disinhibition effect lead to controversial creations that call into question the boundary between free speech and socially disruptive behavior. But that's the point of jokes, right? To disrupt the audience's expectations. We often laugh because we're uncomfortable. Think of any successful comedian you've heard. Some of the bits that we react the most to are the ones that have us thinking in our head, did they just say that out loud? Or for instance, tickling. That's one of the most uncomfortable situations you can ever be in, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. But we laugh? Or babies. Let's take a look at babies. They have no concept of language yet, so what they're laughing at is often very natural or innate. So if you're making a baby laugh, then you're probably genuinely funny. Or you're making them uncomfortable. Think about what babies laugh at, right? Peekaboo. When you play peekaboo with a baby, they don't yet understand object permanence. They don't understand that when you cover your eyes, that you're still there. They think you've disappeared entirely. So when you suddenly reappear, they are shocked. And they usually laugh because they don't really know what else to do. And that's kind of how we react to offensive memes. So why do people make memes? Why does this all matter? To answer this question, I polled about 1,000 of my Facebook friends, and the results ultimately fell in these 4 categories. For validation, to make fun of your friends, to make a statement, political or otherwise, or start a conversation, or to laugh and distract from reality and daily life, often via some commonality. And while all of these goals are different, they seem to have one thing in common. They build relationships. And consequently, they build communities. They build communities in geographic areas like states, or universities, or cities. They build communities amongst people with similar interests, like music, or cats, or dogs, and so much more. And again, paying attention to these things that happen both within and outside of cyberculture is so key to understanding them. For instance, the kind of memes that you'll see on the UT memes page are often City of Austin happenings, university news, or the decades-long rivalry with Texas A&M. So all of these things come together to form cyberculture. All of these communities, all of these individuals connecting to form cyberculture, one culture in which we all participate. It's rather funny to me how something so inherently silly can have such a major effect on the way we communicate with one another. And not only is it connecting individuals and communities, it's connecting generations as well. I don't know about you guys, but I've heard generations older than myself or even older than my parents say that they're just writing off internet memes. They don't need to spend time with them and they don't need to understand them. They're silly internet jokes. But many people felt this way about other innovations in the past. The internet, Facebook, smartphones, and even paper. When paper as we know it today was gaining popularity, older generations wrote it off and said that tablet writing was much more permanent and respected, and that paper was an innovation that wouldn't last. Memes are no paper, for now. But meme culture will only continue to grow, and there's no stopping it, and it will continue to affect the way we communicate with one another in the future. Maybe someday, internet meme creation will be a skill essential to successful relationships, or even the job market. Maybe it already is. But for now, keep scrolling, keep sharing, and as they say on Twitter, thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Next, we're going to look at some memetic behavior and also listen to some memetic rhetoric that I've observed being circulated on social media in the last few weeks. And pretty much all of these videos seem to be coming from TikTok influencers. But something I found quite interesting, maybe disturbing, was the similarities in the sort of head movements and facial gestures that all of these influencers seem to possess. And is that by accident? Is that by design? Or is this an example of memetics? Human see, human do. They see one influencer blinking and bobbling their head around and they do it. But there does seem to be something in some reason in purpose to all of this, in my opinion. And don't know if or not you share that opinion, but we are going to slow it back down to regular speed and hear what they have to say. You can provide your input as we watch together.
There's no time limit on them, so this is designed to be the new normal. They promote segregation and division. They're discriminatory. They're absolutely pointless because they have no bearing on immunity or transmission. It creates a show your papers society. It's a coercion to get you to take a medical treatment, and it removes your freedom of choice. So aside from all that, this is just the start. As with the situation in Israel, these vaccine passports have an actual sell-by date, again, and time limit. So you think you're fully vaccinated because you've got your double jab and you're so happy because you're going to have access to everything. That only lasts for a certain amount of time because they're bringing the third booster out. So that vaccine passport only lasts.
Now, current studies coming out of Israel show that the Pfizer vaccine wanes within 3 to 5 months. So we're all in this together, communism. And also, you'll need the latest booster or you can't take transit to work. So you're not just asking me to take a vaccine. You're asking me to receive vaccines as a lifestyle choice. You're asking me to accept an unending streak of vaccines, not only for the rest of my life, but as a condition of my freedom. Do you understand how dumb you are if you think anyone's opposition to this maniacal proposition is in any way inappropriate? No, I don't want infinite boosters forever as a condition of my own freedom. What the hell? Why is anyone advocating for this?
See, I believe it when I see it, because this seems to me like another psychological tactic to lull us into a false sense of security. Because at the end of the day, last year, Eat Out to Help Out had only just finished. We're not even to the cold flu season yet. So what's going to happen then when the cases and the deaths goes up? Oh, how are we going to get out of lockdown then? Oh, do the vaccine passports have to come back then? Looks like it to me. So you know what? I ain't cheering yet and I ain't celebrating. It's not happening. I will. I've been an advocate for this. I've been campaigning. When it happens, if we get through the winter and we return to normal, I'll be celebrating.
Then you're not. It's you're racist, is what I'm saying. Hi, this is a little message to the unvaccinated. You are killing everyone. It's your fault. You're being selfish, so get the vaccine. Because I'm vaccinated. I am vaccinated, okay? And so I'm protected because the vaccine is safe and effective. So if you're around me and you're unvaccinated, then you're putting me at well, you're not. Okay, so you're selfish because if I'm protected and you're around me, then I'm
distancing. And
then
if the
I'm
vaccine
fine,
doesn't
but
provide any immunity,
sorry.
why get the vaccine? And the vaccine passport scheme is completely and utterly useless. Wakey, how can you get herd immunity from a vaccine that doesn't provide any immunity? Right now, that vaccine passport looks like a show of obedience to your authoritarian government. Literature states, the vaccine doesn't stop you spreading or catching the virus. It doesn't provide immunity, but it does lessen symptoms. So riddle me this. If asymptomatic spread is real and the vaccine only lessens the symptoms, that would make the double jabbed the most likely in society to become asymptomatic, thus making the vaccinated the most dangerous asymptomatic super spreaders. Honestly, it's real. Go through it again. So that would mean you either believe in asymptomatic spread or you believe the vaccine works, because you can't believe in both because the concepts are mutually exclusive.
Lied to, incentivized, coerced, bullied, socially shamed, guilt-tripped, threatened, paid, punished, and criminalized. If all of this is considered necessary to gain your compliance, you can be absolutely certain that what is being promoted is not in your best interest. If you have to be persuaded, reminded, pressured, lied to, incentivized, coerced, bullied, socially shamed, guilt-tripped, threatened, paid, punished, and criminalized, if all of this is considered necessary to gain your compliance, you can be absolutely certain that what is being promoted is not in your best interest.
And liberties. And in 2021, what are the same men doing now from a government who are trying to do the same and inject their children with an experimental medication that could kill them? Oh, govern me harder, Daddy. Oh, lock me down again and jab me more and use the children to protect me too. So in World War II, did they send their kids over the trenches as a shield to protect them first? How many 12 to 15-year-olds have to die of blood clots and myocarditis and long-term effects
so selfless adults can sit at home and feel safe and protected? This is sexist because I'm using men here. I couldn't give a fuck whether you're
I wish you really did help, but you don't. And you're on the side of wrong. I hope this recall goes through because California does not need you. The nation does not need you. The world does not need you. We do not need you. Governor Gavin Newsom, you're facing a recall because you're a fraud, just like your wife, Jennifer Siebel Newsom. I have the receipts. I wish I didn't. I wish you were all real. I wish you really did help, but you don't. And you're on the side of wrong.
You can be absolutely certain that what is being promoted is not in your best interest. If you have to be persuaded, reminded, pressured, lied to, incentivized, coerced, bullied, socially shamed, guilt-tripped, threatened, paid,
or you already have donated, first of all, thank you. Second of all, please share. This is a people-funded campaign, a grassroots-funded campaign that's not taking any corporate money, so every single dollar helps and can have a huge impact. And we can show people that it is possible to have a people-funded campaign and get elected to Congress. So please share this, and yeah, thank you. Donate, or you already have donated, first of all, thank you. Second of all, please share. This is a people-funded campaign, a grassroots-funded campaign that's not taking any corporate money, so every single dollar helps and can have a huge impact. And we can show people that it is possible to have a people-funded campaign and get elected to Congress. So please share this, and yeah, thank you.
Story about the COVID shot. So I'm gonna probably get kicked off TikTok for this, but it's fun. It's worth it, just so you know. So my son is gonna be 17. He had COVID, I had COVID, my parents had COVID. We all lived this last year. Antibodies are going through the roof. They're raising, they're not decreasing. But my son, because douchebag de Blasio decided it's mandated, you have the vaccine, he couldn't do anything. So he said, Mom, I want to get the shot. So I went when Pfizer was FDA approved and I got the shot. Now I'm living with congestive heart failure. But guess what? A week later, I have AFib. Now I'm living with congestive heart failure and AFib. And when I went for the second shot to tell them what happened, they told me it was the 40th person that walked into that pharmacy that wound up with AFib from the shot. So before you get the jab, make sure you talk to your doctor.
From getting the vaccines, all of Congress, plus all the congressional staff, House and the Senate, that's a lot of people. 6,000 White House employees, all exempted. 2,500 Pfizer employees exempted. 1,500 Moderna employees, and 120,000 Johnson & Johnson employees, all exempted. 15,000 CDC, 14,000 FDA employees, exempted. 8 million Chinese students in this country. 8 million. How many of them are PLA, CCP? 85, 90%. That's how many. I can tell you that. Exempted. Here's another one. 2 million illegal invaders. Exempted. They don't have to get the shot. Now, what is going on here? Now, let me throw another one in. This is going to be the cherry on top. At least 500,000 homeless tent and street people are exempted. So,
stigmatized, coerced, bullied, socially shamed, guilt-tripped, threatened, paid, punished, and criminalized. If all of this is considered necessary to gain your compliance, you can be absolutely certain that what is being promoted is not in your best interest.
It's mandated that you have the vaccine.
If you have to be persuaded, reminded.
In the hardest season of your life, and secretly they were hoping you weren't going to make it. And you were praying the wrong prayer. You wanted God to kill your enemies. God said, no, I can't kill your enemies. I'm keeping up people who watched you while you were in the hardest season of your life. And secretly they were hoping you weren't going to make it. and you were praying the wrong prayer. You wanted God to kill your enemies. God said, no, I can't kill your enemies. I'm keeping them.
You have to be persuaded, reminded, pressured, lied to, incentivized, coerced, bullied, socially shamed, guilt-tripped, threatened, paid, punished, and criminalized. If all of this is considered necessary to gain your compliance, you can be absolutely certain that what is being promoted is not in your best interest.
So there we just saw some TikTok influencers delivering some memetic rhetoric as well as some memetic behavioral patterns. And now what we are going to look at is some examples of some written memes and meme mutations that I've witnessed circulating on social media news feeds in the last few weeks and maybe months. And some of you yourself may be familiar with some of these memetics that we are about to see, and some of you may have inadvertently become part of the meme spreading propaganda machine and shared some of these yourself. But memes do play a huge part of social media society, and they do seem to have had an awful lot of money been spent by government and alphabet agencies into researching and developing military memetics, as well as the parameters and rules for engagement on memetic warfare. And you have to ask yourself, with them preparing for memetic warfare years in advance of social media being launched and being a part of everyday society that does seem to govern our behavioral patterns quite extensively, was the purpose of social media little more to provide the battlefields for memetic warfare, and are the powers to be providing all the augmented ammunition for the inadvertent players in the real life role-playing COVID Con Go multiplayer online real-life role-playing. As I said, people have chosen their side, and people have been inputted and implanted with all the augmented memetic rhetoric and ammunition that they need to carry out their job as frontline meme infantry. But this is a little reminder of some memetics from around this last year that really disturbed me, to just see how an example of how exactly memes can influence the minds of the masses, and how masses can be triggered with little more than a suggestion on social media to carry out a command on demand.
Wake up to reality. Nothing ever goes as planned in this accursed world. The longer you live, the more you will realize that the only things that truly exist in this reality are merely pain, suffering, and futility. Listen. Everywhere you look in this world, wherever there is light, there will always be shadows to be found as well.
Baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark. Baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark. Baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark. Baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark. Baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark, do 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 do.
If or not you can hear the crickets, it couldn't be more metaphoric, or literally metaphoric, to the crickets during the chat of that presentation. But welcome to the late comers there. Wait 1 second, I need to shut my door before I get infestated with mosquitoes. So I'm back, sorry, so let me recalibrate my camera slightly. Hopefully you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you could hear the crickets. I could hear them clearly. If not, they come through on the camera or not. And please do give me a sign that you are alive and well in the chat. Camera on. Let me get that out the way. Welcome back. Happy belated birthday, maiden. 17th of October, the big 4-9. Well, as you know, I reached the big 5-0 a little under 3 months ago, and it is around 3 months that I have been in Mexico, where most of my time, to be quite honest, I do sit listening to the crickets, and sometimes sitting out in the day watching the birds, and then usually at night when the birds go to sleep, I watch the bats, and in between catch the lizards. But we've had a little bit of a week of rain the last sort of 10 days, which is why I sort of got a little bit back into shit video productions slightly, just to sort of keep myself occupied. There is only so much you can do where it's raining anywhere, and that is the case in the tropics as well. So I tried to put a little bit of that spare time in being able to sort of be indoors and not put it to waste by putting that time to ship video productions. And believe it or believe it not, this little production you just saw, I did take the better part of that last sort of 10 days, I suppose, since the sort of rain did hit us and was quite constant through the week. But today it did clear up a little bit. And if or not there's a time delay or going on here, I think that might be a little bit of the case. There does seem to be a little bit of a delayed reaction in the comments, and it was very hard to keep up with the one single comment from Glynis. Team analysis, that was the one and only comment in reaction to the presentation on MemeKultra, where we looked at some very disturbing information coming out of DARPA, out of NATO, out of the CIA, all organizations that are spending heavily on memetics and have literally memetic think tanks in memetic war centers where they control the memes for both sides of the narrative for their eventual deployment. And it is something I said I'm very, very interested in and have looked quite deeply at, and I've presented before previously at TSP TV, and I think once or twice maybe here at Reality Decoded, but the more and more I look at the way that society is being informed, it seems to come from the form of memes. Now, back in the early sort of part of the pandemic, maybe a month or two in, over at TSP TV, uploaded a video titled Manchurian Karens, what's the deal in that? And it was sort of a little bit when I was starting to unravel this possibility that mimetic influence is what is controlling the minds of the masses. And in that video I was sort of pointing out that is there a possibility perhaps that maybe depending on what social media platform you use, maybe if you use Twitter, or maybe if you use Facebook, or maybe if you use Tumblr or TikTok or whatever, you might get a certain amount of programming that will influence the way you think and behave. And are these Manchurian Karens that seemed to be back then acting violently and aggressive to people who weren't wearing masks, were they the product of mind control, or were these videos themselves products of mimetic influence, so other people who may be angry with people not wearing masks would behave the same way as these Karens they saw on TikTok. Now, TikTok seems to be in the center of an awful lot of the information that is being shared on all social media platforms from during this time of the pandemic. And back in that Manchurian Karen video, I sort of pointed out the fact that a lot of people have been put into isolation. They've been segregated from society, be it their sort of school friends, their work colleagues, maybe the people they meet at the bar or the gym, maybe they play soccer or have other sort of outlets outside of the work that would give them a social interaction with people. And all of a sudden they've been stuck inside on their own, have been told to social distance, don't go outside, put in almost solitary confinement conditions. And why they've been put in solitary confinement conditions, they've been given an awful lot of free time to fill by not having labour and not being able to go anywhere. And the majority of that time that they've been spending is on their social media screen. In many cases, they might also in the background have the TV on, they may be listening to the radio that is also providing rhetoric, mimetic rhetoric, and narrative, and the fear and all the ingredients needed to traumatize someone and dissociate somebody from their former life. And once you sort of achieved that disassociation and sort of isolation and become dependent on your devices and your TV for your messages, then you're very, very, very more susceptible to the influence of brainwashing and mind control methodologies. And I've always kind of had a suspicion that memes have been some form of it, the very, very least thought implantation. They share if you agree. This is sort of, putting that idea in your head. Now, the other thing that you do get from sharing and agreeing with popular memes is a dopamine report. And another thing to do in brainwashing and programming Manchurian candidates is when they command correctly and you've given their trigger and they responded, you give them a little bit of a reward in the form of drugs. And that is what dopamine, what the reactions, your thumbs up in your likes and your shares, the more of those you get, the more dopamine reaction you get. And that is the drug, that is your reward system for sharing and agreeing with this. Now, that was maybe 3, possibly 4 months into the pandemic. Bear in mind, we're 18 months into it. We've been open, we've been closed, we've been open, we've been closed. Some people never opened at all. Some people never, just carried on their business and didn't sort of adhere or comply with the sort of lockdown measures. And this is where you got your demographic for cult brainwashing. And this was the evidence. And I spent an awful lot of time last summer out at the anti-lockdown protests in Toronto in their infancy, and for a couple of months I kind of watched it transition in to what was a cult-like mentality. And just to give you one example of that cult-like mentality, there was sort of like the main movement, and then sort of within the movement little sort of cliques and splinter cells, if you want to even go as far as to call them that. But little smaller groups sort of branched off from the main group, and one of which they have a little social media, a Facebook group on social media, and all of them agreed to change their second name on their Facebook profile to freedom. And I was chatting to a couple of them about the Heaven's Gate cult and how, what was his name, Applegate, Applewhite? I can't remember, it's Applewhite or Applegate, one of the two, but the cult leader of the Heaven Gate cult influenced and encouraged that everybody within that movement changed their surname to Odie. And then they all had like weird Rickody, Kadodi, Modi, Badodi kind of names, but all of them ended in Odie, and we all know what happened to the Heaven's Gate cult. And I do got a video on Reality Decoded, one of the early videos I actually uploaded on here on one of the early streams. But cults and culture creation are also the artistry of the Tavistock Institute, and many of their subsidiary divisions and corporations that belong to them will also have their own memetic warfare, military memetic division that does have all the experts that they need to create the perfect memes to deliver the message. And the viruses of the mind, which we talked about before the presentation, we heard about during the presentation, this is how the pandemic is being, the true nature of the virus is the virus of the mind of the people that have been maybe influenced, programmed into believing either masks are good or masks aren't good. And I did see first-hand evidence not only of a sort of cult-like mentality that the lockdown movement in Toronto come, but there's also a few times that there were some BLM marches and protests in Toronto, and watching that even more than the sort of anti-lockdown, it was like, holy fucking shit, are they going to drink the Kool-Aid any minute now? It really, really did reek of cult-like mentality. And culture, social media cults can be created within social media groups. And this is another thing that was also very, very interesting at the start of the pandemic, that Facebook was all about the groups. They were promoting groups on many sort of people's newsfeed. Hey, try this group, try that group. And they were usually groups that were sort of based on stuff that the algorithm has collected that you're interested in. Now, aside from having a YouTube channel that 6 people sometimes bother to turn up and pay attention to my live streams on, over on Facebook, and for quite some years now, I've got quite a lot of community groups, social groups for a variety of things, mostly nostalgic soccer, and a couple of funny ones for funny family pictures, funny mug shots from inmates. Funny enough, the simplest group that I've got, What the Fuck Mug Shots, has nearly 50,000 members in it. And combined, if I put all my group members together, it's around 100,000 members over a variety of groups. But mostly it's sort of for nostalgic football, a couple of TV shows, and a couple of just for shits and giggles type things. But I do have a lot of groups. And at the beginning of the pandemic, they tripled in size. I could not keep up with the amount of members requests that I was getting in the very, very early days of the pandemic, because people were at home. They were bored. And funny enough, in a lot of those groups, in particular the old school football groups, I was getting lots of messages from people saying, my God, this group's really, you don't know how this group's helped me through this. And then the sort of comments, sort of 200, 300, 400 comments. Yeah, no, for reals, I've had so many nostalgic memories, remembering games and players in the shirts that they would wear. I've been truly grateful to this group. Not that I'm sort of saying that I need to be elevated to some kind of hero, get a statue erected and be awarded a medal for my contributions to humanity, but those community groups did serve a purpose. But what dual purpose they serve is to the algorithm is a concentrated camp or demograph, should I say, of individuals that they can data harvest, and all the harvest they can collect from them, or either sort of try to advertise them products or similar sort of content on other parts of Facebook. But most importantly, it will look at ways that it can control that group, and artificial algorithms will create artificially intelligent bots that will mimic the behavior of individuals within that group. In Maiden, funny enough, you mentioned something about it a little while ago, dead internet, that there is a very good chance that an awful lot of people you do interact with on the internet, particularly people who seem to be very, very like-minded, are in fact artificially intelligent bots that have been programmed to mirror who you are in order to kind of data extract extra sort of data that you might only confide in a very, very close friend. And as I said, the amount of control and messaging that is being provided is coming from social media. It's not like many people sit in tune into the news every night at 10 o'clock. It's not like many people, listen to, sorry, just a minute, the news is on the radio. I listen to the radio when they're taking a shit. They have a little scan through their social media feed. When they're waiting in line to get a coffee, they have a scan. And this is where the little tidbits of information comes. But with memes, as particularly like the traditional sense of social media memes with the picture, with the words on top, which we heard about from the lady in the TED talk. And again, when TED are talking about memetics, there's got to be some dual purpose to it. And the point of the matter is, even if you kind of stop, look at it, share and agree with it, even as you're kind of scanning past, it gets embedded in your brain subliminally. And this is how social media works. You keep scrolling through and then you come back to the bottom, reset, start again. And all the images that you see, you don't necessarily retain it, but your subliminal conscious does. And any memetic rhetoric or programming that you will sort of may inadvertently or go out of your way to pay attention to on social media gets implanted into your mind. And the viruses of the minds are plaguing the actions and behavior patterns of social media users who have become a little bit high and dependent on dopamine. All drugs have an effect. It doesn't matter if it's dopamine or if it's not. Like sometimes I get dopamine overdose from being in the sun, and when I sort of come in at the end of the day when I've had an hour too long, I do feel as though I'm a little bit intoxicated or coming down from something. It's a little bit twitchy at times. But you can get dependent, and social media users have been inadvertently force-fed dopamine and have become addicted to it. And dopamine is delivered on a variety in almost every way in aspects of social media, because it's the dopamine that keeps social media working. And the more dopamine you get, the more data you can deliver and be harvested. Or the more dopamine you're given, the more it's kind of like handing out flyers in the shopping malls. Like, let's give this guy a stack of memes, but let's just not give him the whole stack at once. We're just giving him one at a time. And you'll see that meme on your social media. Like, hey, I'm going to share and agree with that. And you share it, and then it goes to someone else's newsfeed, and they, oh my God, I'm going to share and agree with that, and on and on and on. And the reward for doing that is a couple of thumbs up, maybe a smiley face on the side emoji if you're lucky. And where's dear old Nancy when you need her? And sometimes I actually joked, if you do remember and pay attention, that we joked and called her the Cajun agent. And I also sort of had a little bit of a suspicion, is she even a real person? Is she just a bot? Because she just emojied up, love her wherever she may be. I hope she's well and good. Because of course Louisiana had a little bit of a hurricane. God, I can't even remember what it was called. Katrina, my God. That's how much I've been detached from reality and how much I've reconnected to nature. I do enjoy being outside and doing that a whole much more. And it is almost a little bit of a struggle putting myself into these productions again when there is so much outside that it is far more enjoyable. But anyway, that was my presentation on MemeKultra, MemeKultra. If or not any of you had any thoughts or opinions, which clearly didn't seem to be the case, although Glynis, you were lurking, so I do understand that is why. But I did drop down to 2 people, and just at the start saying, my goodness, I've had a crazy video that's got sort of more views than any other video on my channel in like the space of a day, and stop the algorithm. I need to get off, and maybe the algorithm, oh shit, he's got too many views on this video. It's just reduced the amount of people that see this. But those that were watching didn't seem to have an awful lot to say on that presentation, and it's also very unlikely that this will get any further feedback once we end it and it gets left on my newsfeed. But I'd be interested to see if it does get anything. Yeah, somehow I miss a little bit Nancy, but I don't necessarily miss all the nonsensical emojis. And again, emojis are something we looked into in sort of their references. Some of them are occult symbols. There is emoji witchcraft, if or not you believe in that, but there are quite a few social media groups and emoji witches who will tell you a series of emojis to put in that you can either put good fortune or bad fortune on people. And there is actually meme magic from the actual occult that you could also be looking at in the future on memetics, but judging by the interest and lack of enthusiasm on this particular stream, maybe I won't rush into doing any follow-ups on there. My internet stuffed up, but it was good. Thank you, Tuna. Glad you did that. That's almost a little bit kind of like your mum when you sort of brought home that shit Crayola drawing that you did of a dog that looks nothing like a dog. You know, that's a great dog, son. I'm gonna put it right up here on the fridge. Good job. And funny enough, I actually went to a school that integrated sort of handicapped kids with normal kids, so we thought would make the handicapped kids feel a bit more normal. But back in the 1980s, when sort of political correctness wasn't even a thing really, and rampant minds would run amok, the poor handicapped kids that were integrated into the classes with the normal kids just become fodder for fun and often mimicry. But there was one of them that kind of had little arms. He's a thalidomide child, but he had this like harness thing on his head with a pointer that he could kind of like point buttons on a very basic BBC computer back then. And sometimes they'd change the attachment and he'd have a crayon that he'd draw with. And it also kind of had a bit of a negative effect on the not handicapped kids, not to say normal kids, but the non-handicapped kids, because in some ways this is a little bit of a distraction and a little bit destructive to your social environment. Lily Gee, I was late to the party. I enjoyed the bit I watched, getting ready for work and cooking at the same time. Lily Gee, are you a re-offender or are you a new offender? I don't recognise the name, and as I said, are you a re-offender that may have just changed your name? And everybody was late, and many people didn't get the notification to the. No, I'm just jesting. And sometimes you got to laugh, or otherwise you cry. Tuna, as I said, there was a few people watching, and sometimes I like to tell the lie that I believe that it's because they're really interested and they're paying attention like this. Like, wow, it's really interesting. Really? Oh my god! Did you hear this? I haven't got time to type. I need to pay attention. Look at me being a TikToker, and I think possibly, if or not you call it. Glynis, at least, did you like the Baby Shark TikTok parody outro ending I did there or not? I thought that might have at least got one lol, perhaps, but I must admit, guys, not lying to you, it was a little bit of a disappointing stream, particularly because I did sort of put quite a little bit of time putting it all together, and sometimes you won't know how many hours it takes to put 4 little squares of bobbing heading TikTokers together in somewhat synchronicity. But nevertheless, it kept me busy and kept me entertained for a few hours. And the fact that 3 or 4 people saw it rather than no people saw it is win, win, win. So I'm probably going to be wrapping up because it's 1:30 in the morning. Yeah, she'll be here next week. And I'm actually kind of thinking she's going to be here for a couple of months. She was going to be moving here permanently, but had second thoughts, wants to see what it's like first, which is understandable. But really and truly, this sort of next week's going to be a bit busy to me. I'm going to be moving out of my little apartment into a house, mainly because my mum is coming for a couple of weeks, and you can rent a house in a nice area, far cheaper here than it is to sort of stay in hotels and stuff. So that is what I'm going to be doing. I've got some sort of paperwork and stuff to sign. Got to go and see lawyers and realtors. It's quite a procedure to rent a property legally, which is something I haven't done for 15 years. I haven't done anything legally for 15 years, and sort of being in the system is a little bit of a shock to the system. But yeah, she'll be here, and as I said, she's going to be here for a couple of months. I'm going to be staying in a nice house for 3 months, maybe longer, if or not I stay there, or if or not I find something a little bit cheaper and smaller for myself as an individual. Long term, that's to be seen. But at the moment, I've got a busy week ahead, and then my mum's going to be here for a couple of months. I ain't seen her for like 9 years, believe it or not, nearly 10. So and it would also be nice to sort of see her. The last time I seen her, it was in kind of depressing circumstances after my deportation. So it'd be nicer to see her in somewhat happier environments, in better state of mind. But the point I'm trying to get to, that I'm beating around the bush a lot, is that there's a chance that I'm going to take a leave of hiatus from Ship Video Productions after this week. Although I might going to do a little bit of touring when my mum's here, go to some places, get some stuff for some out and about content for TSP TV maybe. But I'm not going to have time, is what I'm saying, to really be putting the effort into this. And to be honest, since I've sort of been here, I've found it far more enjoyable sitting out, doing nothing, just looking at the scenery, being surrounded by sort of fresh air, getting my vitamins and dopamine from the sun, and fresh fruits and things like that, and then wanting to do this. And it might be an idea to sort of have a little break from it all, in the one step back, 2 step forward type of mentality, and come back in the new year. Not necessarily bigger, badder, or even better, but maybe a little bit streamlined or stylized. I don't know. That was what I'm thinking. There is a chance this week I'm going to be a little bit busy back and forth. I might have to do some moving. I still haven't unpacked my bags since I've arrived, other than a sort of few t-shirts in underwears that I sort of wear in wash in the shower and hang on the balcony for an hour or two until they're dry, and sort of keep myself in clean clothes like that. And I did buy a couple of t-shirts and pairs of shorts while I was here, because I didn't have sort of much summer clothes. But most of my stuff's unpacked, and it'd be sort of nice to sort of be able to unpack, to be able to sort of feel as I'm in a home. And again, for 15 years, all I've ever really done or known is room rentals and weird roommates. And this is another bonus here. I sort of live on my own. I have a very small little somewhat comfortable and humble apartment, but I'm on my own, and even sort of some of those days that it was raining a little bit, sort of, too wet to go out, and I was just sitting here, I was quite content just to sort of sit and look out the window at the rain. You're laughing at rain, Lynn. That's an Alan Partridge joke. Maybe Tuna might get it, but probably clutching at straws with that reference. But nevertheless, guys, I probably will be taking a little bit of a leave of absence. I've got this finished, this presentation finished and out the way, which was sort of something I was working on, wanted to get done sooner than I did, and then become sort of a bit of a effort and labour of not necessarily love, but just wanting to get it done. I still have my Soylent Green decoded, partially completed. That needs a little bit of recording and editing before that's done and dusted. But I might just, as I said, sort of tie up a few loose ends in a couple of sort of productions that I've got in semi production before this week's out, and I might try and pop up a couple of short, sweeter uploads rather than going to the lengths of the streams. And some of you may know that when I sort of started Reality Decoding, started pre-recording presentations, was the fact that when I sort of tended to record stuff and put it up as an upload, it got very, very little to almost no response, except for emojis from Nancy. And there was one time I did wake up to a video, true story, And I was sort of like, why don't I seem to get any comments on any of my videos? I find it interesting. Surely there must be one person out of the 70 or so that watched it that found it interesting. And this one day I had 16 YouTube notifications. I'm like, what the fuck? 16? That's never happened before. And I logged into the studio app and opened up the notifications, and wouldn't you believe it, 15 of the 16 notifications were Nazi. Nearly every single one of them was an emoji, and in the other only ones that sort of contained words were like usually emojis, Shaw! And some of the comments were her replying to her emojis with emojis. I should probably try and find that video and screenshot the comment section because it's quite funny. And I was like, okay, so the only comments I'm going to get. So long story short, if you're even paying attention, is that I figured out the only sort of way that people tended to pay attention was in the live streams. And sort of once upon a time, the live streams were just me ad-libbing, talking from the cuff, with not really too much direction. And sort of that's when I started putting together the presentations and sort of having a theme topic for the live stream. And it is sort of from my side, you do sort of notice the sort of amount of people that are in when there's no stream running, and the sort of amount of people that are in the stream when it is running, and sort of people that may continue to guss it up. But that's kind of why I put the presentations together and did the live streams the way I do. And I might just go back to putting uploads on for a while if I do put any content on this channel in the next few months, because funny enough, the sort of roles have reversed. Things that I have uploaded have got quite a lot of comments and feedback, and good feedback, so that might be the way to go, and that's why it might be nice to sort of have a little step back, and as I said, renew, not necessarily rebrand or rebadge, but come back with a new format. That's the word I was looking for. A new format. But yeah, Tuna, she and her friend will be coming from Swindon next Tuesday, so I've got to go pick them up. Tomorrow I actually need to go and do lots of things that I never ever thought in a month of Sundays that I'd be doing, going to banks to withdraw money in order to go and see realtors and pay lawyers to notarize. It's a long-winded process, but as I said, my life has changed dramatically in the sort of 3 months that I've left Toronto. In just bearing in mind, guys, it was about 5 or 6 months ago that I was back in Toronto, and there was a time when I was literally crawling around on my basement floor, trying to find bits of tobacco. Where's the camera? I don't know if you can see that, little bits of tobacco that I could roll up in a receipt that I found in an old pair of jeans pockets, because I run out of cigarettes and I also run out of rolling papers. And I'm sure some of you will be only too aware of my bizarre erratic roommate situation, and here I am sort of 6 months later. It's still very sort of surreal to me, and why I do sort of tend to just sort of sit and stare just to try and take it in. But here I am, living in the tropics, living in my own little apartment, looking to be moving into my I'm not buying a house, I am only renting, but looking to rent a house and spend some time with my mum that I haven't seen for some time. So as I said, there's going to be more important things in the coming weeks ahead than putting together shit video productions for 5 people to watch. No disrespect, but I'm sure you understand that in that situation that it'd be nicer to spend time with. I can't exactly like drag my mum over. Okay, mum, you need to just go and entertain yourself while I make a video on MemeKultra for Glynis to listen to while she's at work. Maybe providing Tuna's internet holds up, you might add some input to it. But I do love you guys, and I do appreciate you guys. I do joke and jest, and hopefully you know I'm joking and jesting with you all here, and I wouldn't be doing it if you weren't here, to be honest with you. And as I said, I'm not really out to sort of be viral and get millions of views. You never ever hear me tell you to share this wherever they hear me saying, hit the thumbs up, and you know, you don't really even need to tip me out if I do this, because it's something that I'm interested in. I do like to share information, and if not, the information is shared beyond the sharing that I give to you, and if or not anyone does research any of these topics I bring to you or not, it doesn't really matter. It is the sort of fact that I've done my part in sharing the information, and the information goes as far as the recipients wish to spread it. And it is something to, in my opinion, back to the topic of tonight's stream, the memetics. These are a true and real threat to society, and bringing the memetics and coincide and coordinate and synchronize them with frequency-based mind control to that technology. It's like we're fucked. We don't really stand a chance. It doesn't matter how long you want to hold the line and hold out about not getting the vaccine. Vaccines are airborne. This technology is fucking years old. They can stimulate and simulate the symptoms of COVID right up to strokes and heart attacks with frequencies. And in regard to frequencies, in the last few days that I've been sort of spending a lot more time in and around my phone, my computer, recording, editing and stuff, I've got the headaches, the pains in the back of my neck, and I've had a few, not necessarily sleepless nights, but I've sort of been up late in the night, as I am now, 1:45. Literally, I'm asleep sometimes as the sun goes down, and sometimes I sort of force myself, can't go to bed before the sun goes down, because that's the thing babies do. I'm an adult, but I've been sort of falling asleep around sunset, although a little bit later because the days have got shorter. But usually I'm asleep by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Very rare I see midnight. I'm usually up about 5:30, 6 in the morning. I usually go sit out, have my coffee, watch the sunset, and then sort of around about 7:30, 8 o'clock, I will remove my devices from the microwave oven that I keep them in as my Faraday cage to limit the frequencies when I'm at night. But when I go out, I don't even take my phone, particularly after the gun incident when the local mafioso street guys wondered what I was doing, recording videos, and why I was heavily tattooed in their neighborhood. I've been a little bit reluctant to take sort of too much personal belongings. It is a value out when I go with me, and usually leave my phone inside when I go outside to sit by the pool, sit on the roof, sit under a palm tree, or just sit on my balcony and watch the birds. I did get to watch a little monkey the other day jumping around in a tree. We do have little spider monkeys and fruit monkeys here, and that was wonderful. But I thought about that, Maiden, and if or not that comes to be, I don't know, but it might be nice to sort of combine out and about with my mum, perhaps, and sort of go back and put that stuff on SPTV. I don't want to sort of keep reality decoded for sort of reality decoded stuff, and sometimes do feel as though I do shortchange you a little bit when I do streams over here about nothing, because I sort of built this channel on the sort of streams with the feature presentations, and if or not that is the way to continue, I don't know. But again, this is something that memes are having an impact on, because people would rather get memetic information. They'd rather watch a 2-minute video from a TikTok influencer that's just really doing nothing but saying memetic rhetoric. They're not giving you any information, they're providing you any evidence of information or any reports or any article. They're just coercion, double jabbed, ineffective, it's double jabbed, ineffective, coercion, stuff like that. They're not giving you any information, they're just giving you rhetoric, and that rhetoric then trickles down into a variety of new memetic mutations, be it typed or put into the memes. But people, as I said, in this sort of day and age would much rather get 2 minutes of memetic rhetoric than 2 hours of actual information. And that is why I do try to provide as much information, because this is the stuff that is trying to be erased, and they don't want people to pay attention for 2 hours or 3 hours or to retain actual information. All they need people to do is retain enough information for long enough until the next piece of information comes along to erase the first one and be repeated until the cycle, and that is it. And that is what social media newsfeed is all about: recycling and delivering the memes and social media platforms that become the mimetic battlefields for mimetic war. And that literally is how the pandemic is the anti-vaxxers against the just wear a vaccine. What part of get a vaccine don't you understand? Yes and no. I mean, there's certain things. I mean, some of you guys remember what was going on with the mafia and Shauna and Snaffer. And another reason that I turned the camera around, that I was getting threats from the mafia. And I never mentioned any about this, because when you sort of create a problem that you're hoping for a reaction for, the best way to combat that is to not react, and they count on you reacting one way or another. So Snafu and a couple of his buddies, road to prison, were giving me some shit, sending me some emails. We're doing a face reveal. And bear in mind, Canham, this was an individual that used to be a wench wrench. For those of you who don't know who Canham was, she was like a cyber stalker. She turned up one day and said to me, just sent a message randomly, your mum, my mum have the same birthday. Like, I struggle to remember my mum's birthday. The fact that a perfect stranger that I've never met and only thinks they know me because they watch me on YouTube knows my mum's birthday was something that was a little bit disturbing to me. But why I don't want to really do that is for these purposes. I kind of feel a bit bad in terms of turning the camera around and giving the facial recognition in letting people know what I look like. But the reason I did that was to take away any sort of power or agendas or plans that these people had to do a face reveal. Because if you remember, once upon a time, it was all that, which was kind of pretty unique there. Well, honk, 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 honks in the house. My former fellow Torontonian neighbour. You are the token Gusset Girl. It wouldn't be a live stream without a Gusset Girl, so that is a badge you should be very, very proud and honoured to wear this evening. Funny enough, Honks, just before you turned up, you're somebody that I met through one of the same ones that I met through the Toronto lockdown protest. And I think you and I, sort of before you vacated, did speak of the sort of cult-like mentality that was going on there. And many of those people that go to these protests on Saturday spend sort of Monday through or Sunday through to Saturday posting memes and things that sort of generated from the lockdown, and they may sort of share a few videos the sort of Sunday and Monday, and then by Tuesday, Wednesday, it would be the latest rhetoric of mimetic influence that has come out from that previous week. And the futile pursuit of ritualistic behaviours, like each and every week, not just in Toronto, and I do believe actually now looking back in retrospect, Toronto was the beta test ground for the anti-lockdown freedom movement that does seem to have sort of made its way around the world. There's many sort of mimetic copies of the anti-lockdown movement elsewhere in the world. I think they sort of trialed and tested it out using a few controlled oppositions to sort of play the pipes that they were being played to play, that sort of drew the metaphoric rats into following that. But it did become very, very cult-like, in the sort of even the influence of the rhetoric rather of the hugs over mass, the love bomb. That's how you get people into the cult, by love bombing them. This is something that the mafia do in Marfoogle. They love bomb you. They send you thousands of subscribers, and then when you sort of say something that they don't necessarily agree with, they send a whole bunch of people. And if or not the goings on with Shauna in Marfoogle, but they went after her mum and they give her a lot. Her mother apparently, by all accounts, they were threatening her mum in doxing her, in sending her hate mail and things like that. So it's something I really would rather avoid, to be quite honest with you. And it's kind of why I feel a little bit sort of happier here at Reality Decoded, because most sort of people that come here are either sort of the regular offenders that did stick around that weren't necessarily part of the mafia and were probably looking to detach from the Marfugal circle and have made this their home. And you are the guys that have made this our little sanctuary where we can come together and talk about such things. And it's also a little bit sort of sweet irony or bittersweet irony that sometimes some of the streams I threw together in like 2 or 3 hours have been streams that have had the most reactions and interactions and goings on in the chats, and a little bit like the Ghostbusters Decoded stream I did back a few months ago. I put like literally weeks and almost a month's effort into putting that together, and when I did finally stream it, I had very few people watching and almost 0 interactions. It's still draconian in Toronto, says Honks, but places like NYC had a good 50,000 anti-vax turnout. Yeah, there do seem to be increasing in numbers, and if not, we talked about Rwanda and Crimson Mist and frequency and electromagnetic weaponry that could turn a huge crowd of people into savage, raving, mad, psychotic zombies in seconds. The technology exists, it is out there. Most people carry the technology in their hand. You don't even need to send a Hercules with a fucking satellite dish. You can just trigger order 66 in your handheld device and it will emit the frequency and could turn them in there. But this is the sort of civil, it's going to be leading to civil unrest. And how much longer is the line going to hold before the line breaks and somebody throws a Molotov cocktail or something? An agent provocateur, should I say, very akin to what went down in the G20, Honks. You know all about the G20 in Toronto. I wasn't in Toronto when it happened, but I heard about it and researched it before I went to Toronto. And when I was in Toronto, I actually met some sort of people. I think it was the 5th anniversary of the event. There was something going on in Yonge and Dundas Square, and I picked up some DVD and some information on the event and there. And again, I sort of believe that Toronto was used as a beta test ground for the anti-lockdown movement. It was also a beta test ground for martial law enforcement, which is what went down over the G20. They rounded people up. They had detention centers, temporarily made detention centers, and put in some sort of crazy old school laws that sort of give the rights to the police to just search and detain anybody on a will and a whim. And many of the sort of measures that were implemented in Toronto during the G20 kind of are very similar to the lockdown mandates and some of the requirements in sort of bylaws and things that have been issued in while everybody's been distracted arguing over vaccines and masks. And this is what they do, the distraction, and when the distraction, they sort of put all these other sort of measures to counter the problem that they created. That was created just to introduce these measures. But these movements, and it looks, if you're to believe what's coming out of Australia as being legit, I don't necessarily do. You can have a legitimate lockdown. You can have individuals that have gone there under their own sort of influence or own means that will be innocent to the event, but all you need is a handful of actors and people with a script being told how to behave and what to say, and insert those into the backdrop of the IPRO. You've got your cast of thousands. It adds to the authenticity. And check out Shilling Like a Villain if you haven't, where we did look at some of these events that seem to sort of suggest that there are some hostilities rising between the anti-lockdown type protesters and the officials that are there to regulate them, and many sort of laws and stuff or extra powers under the emergency powers guidelines that have been given to not just law enforcement, to health officials and other, that have essentially deputized many people that would have never been deputized before. There are more and more people out there that actually do have the power, certainly in Canada and the United States, to round you up and drag you off to temporary detention centers, FEMA camps, and quarantine camps, as they call the FEMA camps up in Canada, are in place, ready to go. So if or not it's going to happen, I certainly hope so. In a very funny meme that this is how fake awake, the fake awake are the greater faking are, because a true conspiracy theorist, I think, in their rights always wants to be wrong. I'd love to be wrong about half the shit I brought you, but there's an awful lot of evidence and information to support that maybe, just maybe, I might be right about a thing or two. But one of the memes I did see, and a popular meme I'm sure you can't avoid on a daily basis, is Leonardo DiCaprio. I haven't got a glass, but me reacting to something. And obviously it's not them reacting, it's Leonardo DiCaprio from Django Unchained reacting to whatever it was that, what was that guy's name? The dude, I forget his name now. I remembered it earlier, the black dude in Django Unchained. But one of the memes I saw said, me reacting when all my conspiracy friends realized, all my friends that doubted my conspiracies realized that my conspiracies were right. And I anti-memed it with a picture of Dennis Hopper from True Romance when he asks for a Chesterfield. And I said, this is a picture of Dennis Hopper from True Romance. This is how I'd imagine a real conspiracy theory would react to the revelation that all of his conspiracy theories have come true. I'll take that Chesterfield now. If or not you've seen True Romance to understand that reference, he smokes a Chesterfield just before he gets popped and executed in the head by Christopher Walken. But anyway, guys, Dougie Ford was going to fire all the unvaxxed healthcare workers by November 1st, but he's backing off as he has to fire thousands of the public. Is finally at the point they have had enough. And this is what I'm saying, are they pushing people to have enough so that they will push back a little bit? Okay, martial law, civil unrest, you're coming with me, you're coming with me. Check people's social media feeds, see what sort of content and memes they've been sharing, and see if they pose a possible threat. And let's go and round them up and detain them just to be safe. If they're in our hands and in our care, then we know they can't uprise and become insurgents. And that is what was mentioned in that TED talk about some college students, that pre-admission to college, there was a little, and again, was the group set up to see what sort of mentality the people they were admitting into the college. It was an experiment for sure, in my opinion, but a little social media group was set up for new admissions to that college. I can't remember which one it was now, but they were encouraged to share their favorite memes, and then after they shared some of these memes, some of the students were picked out and taken to the dean and yeah, about those memes you shared in our group, unfortunately our university doesn't tolerate or agree with such opinions as the ones contained within your memes. Unfortunately, no admission for you. And is that going to happen on a greater scale? Because again, your memes can be traced and tracked. And back to the copy and paste bunny from last year, this was a trigger. This is a journey into sound. It wasn't a journey into sound, it was a journey into memetic mind control. The symbology of the rabbit we know from MemeKultra. This was a trigger. The rabbit symbolizes the leader, the handler, and when you follow the rabbit, it is because you are about to undergo some trauma. That was a year ago. Many people, without thinking, reacted to that trigger to copy and paste the bunny, but change what it was holding. Most people have had a year's worth of program and been subjected to social media, and in particular social media memes. And trust me, people, this is what is controlling the minds of the majority of the masses out there. Let's go, Brandon. Anagrams. Oh my God. Let's go, Brandon. Thank you, honks. Funny enough, put that in an anagram maker. It makes robot dangle, or dangle robot. And at the end of that speech that Biden gave, he dangled like a robot. Even more scary for you if you want to know this, I actually do have a little video. I was going to actually do the video during this video because no one was paying attention. I was going to even upload it during the stream for you to watch when it's off. But another anagram that come up from something I've seen memetically being shared on social media. 44 beagle puppies. Now, apparently, Anthony Fauci carried out some testing in Tunisia, TT, Twin Towers. Fauci carried out some testing in Tunisia on, in particular, beagle puppies, 44 of them, and apparently he let them get eaten by fleas, and someone cut their throats so they wouldn't bark or make a sound. And that it's funny enough, there is an article and there's a picture of the beagle supposedly that was leaked in this document from a whistleblower. What do we say about whistleblowers, people? Nobody blows whistles that aren't meant to be heard. But the dogs were laid out, and if you kind of looked in between the dogs, it kind of made a pyramid, and there were kind of two of the dogs, and again the Egyptians and their association to dogs and sacrificial dogs and such forth, all of this going on. But 44 beagle puppies. If you type 44, like the words, not the numbers, you write it in letters, 44 beagle puppies, what comes back to you in an anagram generator is puberty plague. Puberty plague. Or, as an alternative, if you remove the puberty, another word that is generated is purity plague. Hang on. That was me acting memetically to get the message through to you there. But as I said, puberty plague or purity plague. Is that a coincidence? Those words were contained in 44 beagle puppies, or is it just coded messaging? And if you remember last year video up on TSP TV, hand sanitizer, toilet paper, soap. If you put those words into an anagram generator, the words that come back: planned hospitalizations, or an alternative word to planned, pretend hospitalizations. Coincidence or coded messages? What do you think? Let me hear if you have any thoughts before we wrap it up. My goodness, it's nearly 3 hours. I've inadvertently, that's your muscle memory for you right there. Look, I'm getting back into a little bit of practice, but we will sort of stop talking about memetics, try to wrap this up in the next few minutes while we're getting before we do there. But as I said, guys, I have felt an influence and headaches and sort of aches and pains and some sleepless nights since I've spent more time around my cellular device, and I do would much rather be enjoying recharging and resetting with nature. So there's a good chance that after this week you might not see very much of me, if anything of me, till the new year, although I don't think I'll be missed all of that much, but I will try and get some content up for you this week. As I said, I got to go. Possibly now I might wait until the morning to put the Joe Biden 44 puppies, beagle puppies video together. It's only going to be a short one as an experiment on my part to see if short videos do get any attention. And if or not, we come back in the new year with feature presentations contained within the live streams, or if we even come back live at all, I don't know yet. As I said, I'm going to go and spend a couple of months with my mum and hopefully enjoy being out and about as much as I possibly can. So without any further ado, I am going to get our little dancing girl, which I think is the only reason some people stick around to the very end for, to see Anime Elmel, wherever she may be. Happy Christmas, Happy New Year. I mean, never say never. There, you'll probably see me before this week's out. As I said, I've got a couple of things I might try to finish up, and then, as I said, coming back with a clean slate and refreshed and renewed in the new year. And hopefully by then I'll be a little bit more settled in with my feet under the table here. So am I going to try and drag this out for another minute or not, or should we just try and wrap it up a little bit earlier? Unless anyone has anything to say. Nobody had anything really interesting coming back to me on the anagram coded messages, so I might as well say good night, take care, may the force be with you, and remember to be excellent to each other. This is, as always, Reality Decoded, brought to you from Shit Video Production. I can't even speak, I'm that out of practice. Well, hopefully we will see you next time before you don't see me for a while. And until then, take care, guys. Thanks for tuning in for those of you that did.
Thank you.